Welcome to a new deep dive from AI Unraveled. This is created and produced by Atan Newman. He's a senior engineer and a passionate soccer dad from Canada.
That's right.
If you're keen to stay informed on the latest in AI and, what it means for us, be sure to like and subscribe to AI Unraveled on Apple Podcasts.
Definitely worth doing.
So today, we're diving into something I find really compelling, how artificial intelligence is, fundamentally changing how we see biodiversity.
It's a huge topic.
Yeah, and you, our listener, you told us you wanted to get a quick but thorough grasp of this intersection, so that's what we're aiming for today.
That was good. And biodiversity, it's this incredible spectrum of life, right? It's absolutely foundational for healthy ecosystems.
Right, the basics we rely on.
Exactly. Think about pollination for our crops, or the air we breathe being purified, the water. Those are all ecosystem services.
Yeah.
And they're all driven by biodiversity.
Things we totally take for granted sometimes.
We do. And beyond just the practical stuff, there's this growing idea of the intrinsic value of every species.
Yeah.
It's right to just be.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Our knowledge about all this life, it's got some pretty significant gaps, big ones.
Yeah.
And that's leading to what some people are calling a silent crisis. Silent because, we often don't even see what we're missing.
A silent crisis. Wow, that really hits home. The idea that we could be losing things without even realizing it.
Precisely.
And that brings us to these known unknowns in biodiversity science. Our sources lay out 7 big knowledge shortfalls. Let's see. Linnean, Wallacian, Prestonian, Darwinian, Roncaerian, Hutchinsonian, and Eltonian. Phew.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It really is. It feels like we're trying to build this giant puzzle of life on Earth, but huge chunks are just missing. Or maybe the pieces we do have don't even fit where we think they should.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And these known unknowns, they really throw a wrench in the works for effective conservation, don't they?
Absolutely. Which I guess is where AI comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is where AI enters the picture as a potentially, revolutionary tool. The 2025 review by Pollack and Rolnick, Harnessing Artificial Intelligence to Fill Global Shortfalls in Biodiversity Knowledge. That's kind of our main guide here.
Okay.
And it's just that AI, because it can crunch these massive data sets and find hidden patterns, it really has the potential to help us tackle these critical knowledge gaps.
So that's our mission for this deep dive then, to figure out how AI can actually become this powerful ally for understanding life on Earth.
That's the plan.
Okay, let's dig into this silent crisis idea a bit more. We mentioned ecosystem services, bees pollinating are the obvious example, right?
A classic one,
But the sources point out it's much broader, like decomposition, all those tiny microbes and fungi breaking down dead stuff, recycling nutrients, keeping things clean. That's biodiversity too, isn't it?
Absolutely vital. And we often just don't think about it. And this connects right back to that awareness gap. Well, because our understanding of just how many species there are and what they all do is so incomplete. We might not even grasp what we're potentially losing.
Right.
It's like not knowing you have a certain organ in your body.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know to protect it until it starts failing, right?
Makes sense.
And this lack of conscious ignorance, as the sources call it, it means we might underestimate the crisis, which then affects funding, policy, research. It's a cycle that keeps these knowledge gaps going.
So what are the real-world consequences then, if we stay in the dark about all this?
Oh, they're significant. If you don't have solid data on where species are, how many there are, how they interact,
Yeah.
your conservation efforts are kind of flying blind.
Could waste resources.
Easily. Misapply limited funds, focus on the wrong areas, the wrong species, and even scarier is this idea of dark extinctions.
Right, you mentioned that. Species vanishing before we even know they existed.
Exactly. We lose them, their ecological roles, any potential benefits like, say, new medicines, gone.
Yeah.
And like you said before, these shortfalls, they're all connected.
How do they link up?
Well, take the Linnean shortfall, not knowing a species exists. If you don't know it's there, how can you possibly map its distribution? That's the Wallacian shortfall. Or understand its role in the ecosystem. That's the Eltonian. It's like a domino effect of not knowing.
Wow. Okay. It's really clear how tangled these knowledge gaps are. So let's maybe quickly run through those 7 again, just to fix them in our minds.
Good idea.
So first, Linnean, the gap between known species and how many likely exist. Then Wallacian, where species actually live. Prestonian, how many of them there are, their abundance.
Yep.
Darwinian,
Yeah.
the missing links in the tree of life. Roncaerian, what species do, their traits and functions. Hutchinsonian, what environmental conditions they can handle. And finally, Eltonian, how they all interact.
You got it. And each one has some pretty striking consequences, the sources highlight. For Linnean, I mean, it's mind-boggling that millions of species, especially tiny things like insects and fungi, are probably still out there undiscovered.
Billions. Wow.
And for Relation, it's so important to remember, our maps often just show where scientists looked, not necessarily the species' true range.
Ah, so the map reflects effort, not reality.
Often, yes. And the Bristonian shortfall means populations can decline, maybe drastically, and we might not notice until it's way too late.
And the Darwinian one, that affects how we predict adaptation to climate change, right? And also how we prioritize unique species, like those EDG ones, evolutionarily distinct and globally endangered.
Exactly. It's about protecting the really irreplaceable branches of the evolutionary tree.
Got it. What about Ronquieren?
That one has this cool concept of shadow diversity, unknown traits that could be having big unseen impacts on ecosystems.
And Hutchinsonian.
That has really practical implications. Like, if we don't understand seed ecology well enough, it makes restoring habitats much harder.
Right.
And finally, Eltonian, losing just one keystone species, maybe a top predator or a key pollinator, can cause this ripple effect, triggering more extinctions down the line.
It's almost overwhelming, the scale of what we don't know. And our sources say this isn't just random ignorance, is it? There's a human factor.
Oh, absolutely. We tend to focus on, well, the cute and cuddly animals, right? Or places that are easy to get to. Or where the funding happens to be.
The charismatic megafauna effect.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Our biases as researchers and just as people, they really shape what we study and therefore what we know. Which means huge swaths of biodiversity microbes, species in remote jungles, deep oceans often get overlooked.
Okay, but this is where AI could be a game changer, right? How does this tech step in to help fill these massive gaps?
Exactly. That Pollack and Rolnick review really nails this opportunity. Their big finding is that AI could potentially help close 5 of these 7 major knowledge gaps.
5 out of 7, that's huge.
It really is a significant prospect, but, and this is crucial, they stress it won't just happen by itself. It needs real teamwork. Ecologists who get the biology and the data challenges working closely with AI folks who can build the sophisticated tools needed.
Makes sense. So where are we seeing AI make inroads already? What are the first footholds?
Right now, the main action's in 2 areas. First, species distribution mapping, tackling that Relation shortfall directly.
Okay.
AI algorithms can chew through massive amounts of data, satellite images, camera trap photos, even environmental DNA, eDNA.
That's the genetic material left behind.
Exactly. And AI can analyze all that to predict where species are likely found on a scale we just couldn't manage before with field work alone. But interestingly, the review points out that most biodiversity studies using AI don't really go much beyond this basic mapping yet.
Okay, what's the second area?
The second is species trait detection. This starts to get at the Ronquieren shortfall. Tools like BioCLP can automatically pull out information about species characteristics from images.
Like what kind of characteristic?
Things like body size, maybe wing shape, color patterns, helping us build up these trait databases way faster. And there are platforms like Antenna using AI for automated insect monitoring, which helps with both finding new species and estimating their numbers.
So it sounds like we're starting with a low-hanging fruit, maybe, problems where we have lots of image data. But what about the trickier ecological questions? Where could AI go next?
That's where the truly transformative potential lies. Think about the Linnean shortfall discovering new species. AI could massively speed that up by analyzing images, sounds, DNA sequences, automatically flagging potential new discoveries.
Wow.
For the Bristonian shortfall abundance, AI could give us much better estimates of population trends by analyzing sensor data, using smart techniques like active learning to focus efforts.
And the others? Darwinian, Hutchinsonian?
Even the Darwinian shortfall could benefit. AI can help build more accurate evolutionary trees. For Hutchinsonian, understanding environmental tolerances, AI could integrate all sorts of environmental data to predict where species can live.
And the really complex one, Eltonian, the interactions.
Perhaps the most exciting area. AI could help figure out species interactions by looking at co-occurrence patterns in data, analyzing traits, maybe even mining scientific literature. Rolnick himself said he was surprised AI wasn't being used more broadly yet. He talked about a possible tool-problem mismatch.
Meaning we have the tools, but maybe aren't aiming them at the biggest ecological questions yet.
Something like that. We have powerful AI, but maybe aren't applying it optimally to the core biodiversity challenges.
It sounds like the things that hold back traditional methods scaling up, dealing with patchy or old data, that's exactly where AI could really shine. So can we talk specifics? How is AI actually being used right now?
Yeah, let's get concrete. For linear and Ronc-Aaron species discovery and traits, we're seeing deep learning used widely for image and sound recognition, like identifying birds from songs or insects from photos. Tools like BioCOD, as we mentioned, pulled traits from images. Platforms like Antenna automate insect ID. There's this whole field of imageomics using AI on visual data. And then there's multimodal AI, AI that can handle different types of data together. Like the nucleotide transformer or ChatNT, they can look at DNA sequences and text descriptions simultaneously to understand a species better.
That ability to combine data streams sounds incredibly powerful. What about mapping species and counting them Wallachian and Prestonian?
Yeah, here AI is being paired with remote sensing satellites, drones, and eDNA. This lets us map species distributions with amazing detail, even for really elusive ones.
Even microbes.
Even microbes. Techniques like Gaussian process regression are using satellite data plus eDNA to map diversity of soil, bacteria, fungi, stuff you just can't see easily. And AI is also improving population estimates from camera traps and acoustic sensors, getting better counts of shy animals or birds calling in a forest.
Okay, and what about those complex relationships and limits? Eltonian and Hutchinsonian?
For Eltonian interactions, AI is inferring food webs by seeing whose DNA shows up together in eDNA samples. It's also refining trait-based models, predicting interactions based on species characteristics.
And Hutchinsonian, the environmental tolerances.
AI is integrating loads of environmental data, temperature, rainfall, soil type, with species occurrence records to build much more accurate models of their ecological niches.
This is all really encouraging stuff. What about the deep evolutionary history, the Darwinian shortfall?
AI is definitely making headway in phylogenetics, helping build more accurate evolutionary trees from genetic and even physical data. Machine learning can analyze image features to track how physical traits evolved.
And can it help with identifying threats too?
Yes, that's another key area. AI can blend remote sensing and eDNA to flag areas at high risk of extinction, or do broader risk assessments predicting deforestation hotspots, tracking invasive species spread, monitoring water quality changes. It's becoming clear that data fusion, combining diverse data types, is increasingly vital, and AI is the key to unlocking that. We're even seeing AI-derived data becoming inputs for further analysis.
It really does touch almost every aspect of biodiversity research. Now, this deep dive into AI and biodiversity is brought to you by Etienne Newman, the creator of AI Unraveled. And speaking of using tech to get ahead, Etienne has also developed the AI-powered JamGatTech app.
Ah, yes, JamGatTech.
If you're looking to boost your career, JamGatTech is designed to help you master and ace over 50 really in-demand certifications. We're talking cloud, cybersecurity, finance, business, even healthcare.
That's quite a range.
It is. And it's loaded with features like performance-based questions, quizzes, flashcards, labs, even simulations, everything geared towards helping you learn effectively and nail those exams. So definitely check out the JamGatTech app if you want to take your skills to the next level.
Good tip.
Okay, so back to our discussion. It sounds like AI has this massive potential, but you mentioned earlier it's not quite hitting its stride yet across the board. There are hurdles.
That's a really crucial point, yes. Despite all these exciting examples, the reality is AI isn't yet fulfilling its full promise here. Like we said, it's still pretty heavily focused on distribution mapping and basic trait stuff.
Why is that? What are the main roadblocks?
Well, there are several. A big one is data limitations. You need good data, lots of it, to train AI. But often in biodiversity, the data is, well, patchy, maybe low quality, not standardized between projects. And for the really complex ecological questions, the right data might just be scarce.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, even for AI. What else?
Then there are technological and methodological challenges. An AI model trained in, say, a temperate forest might not work well in a tropical one. Generalization is tough. Scaling these things up to cover huge areas or massive data sets is computationally expensive.
Ecology is just complex.
Incredibly complex. Capturing all those interactions and nuances with current AI is still a major hurdle. And sometimes an AI might flag a problem, but it doesn't give clear, practical advice on what conservation action to take.
Actionable insights are key.
Exactly. Plus, you have resource constraints, cost, lack of people with expertise in both ecology and AI, infrastructure limits in some biodiversity hotspots, like just reliable internet. And finally, we really need better collaboration, better communication between the ecologists and the AI scientists to make sure the tools actually address the most critical needs.
It sounds like a collection of factors creating this gap between potential and reality.
Yeah, some call it the valley of death. for AI and conservation. Great ideas in research don't always make it to widespread practical use. There's this data readiness paradox, too. AI needs data, but biodiversity data isn't always ready for AI.
Okay, so given these hurdles, what are the really critical next steps? How do we ensure AI actually delivers on its promise for biodiversity?
Well, the consensus is we need a much more coordinated strategic approach. One absolute priority is unleashing the data.
Making it more available.
Exactly. We need to push for open data standards,
Hmm.
make biodiversity data genuinely AI ready. You hear about the FAIR principles, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. That needs to be the standard.
What stops that now?
Lots of things. Data is fragmented across different institutions, different projects, often missing crucial metadata information about the data. Sometimes it's locked up behind proprietary restrictions. And honestly, there aren't always great incentives for researchers to put in the extra effort to share their data in these really usable formats.
So we need better infrastructure, too.
Definitely. Things like national or international digital platforms that don't just store data but have AI tools built in to help analyze it, that would be a huge step forward.
Okay, open data is foundational. What about understanding the AI itself? Sometimes it feels like a black box.
That's the second major area, transparency and accountability. We need to be able to peer inside that black box. This is where explainable AI, or XAI, comes in.
Explainable AI.
Yeah, techniques that help us understand why an AI model made a particular prediction or decision. It's crucial for validating the models, spotting potential biases or mistakes, and building trust, especially if these AI outputs are going to inform really important conservation decisions.
So we need to trust the algorithms.
We need to be able to interrogate them, understand their limits, and alongside XAI, we need clear guidelines, frameworks for responsible AI use in biodiversity, regular audits, and always, always human oversight.
It really drives home that this isn't just about better tech, it's about using it responsibly.
Absolutely. Which brings us to another critical piece, ensuring fair science and addressing potential biases.
How does bias creep into AI for biodiversity?
In several ways. There's the equity risk. Pollock and colleagues highlighted so much existing biodiversity data comes from temperate regions, like North America and Europe.
So the AI models get trained mostly on that data.
Exactly. Which means they might not work well in tropical biodiversity hotspots, where most species actually live. This can skew conservation priorities, misallocate resources, and even reinforce historical inequities in science. Think about an identification tool that works great for birds in England, but struggles with insects in the Amazon.
Right. And it's not just geographic bias.
No, there's taxonomic bias too, focusing on popular animals over, say, fungi. Algorithmic bias can creep in depending on how the model is designed. And then there's human bias, researcher preconceptions, funding priorities influencing what data gets collected in the first place. It can become a dangerous feedback loop where bias reinforces bias.
So how do we fight that? How do we make it fairer?
It requires a multi-pronged approach. Better data collection is key, targeting underrepresented areas and species, maybe using citizen science, carefully using techniques like data augmentation.
And the algorithms themselves.
We need tools to detect bias in algorithms. Things like IBM's AI Fairness 360 exist. We need bias correction techniques, designing algorithms to be inherently fairer, being really careful about how we combine different data sources. And critically, we need rigorous model evaluation, using XAI to understand why it might be biased, and involving diverse teams and stakeholders in the process. It's a socio-technical problem. You need algorithmic fixes and changes in research practices and funding.
It sounds incredibly complex, but vital.
It is. And related to fairness is the crucial issue of Indigenous knowledge.
Yes. How does that fit in with AI and data?
We absolutely have to safeguard Indigenous knowledge and build equitable partnerships. This means recognizing Indigenous data sovereignty, the right of Indigenous peoples to control data about their lands and communities. The CARE principles for Indigenous data governance are key here.
CARE principle.
Yes. Collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, and ethics. It means ensuring AI research aligns with community needs, getting free, prior, and informed consent, using tools like traditional knowledge, TK, and biocultural BC, notices or labels developed by initiatives like Local Contexts Hub.
So it's about partnership, not extraction.
Exactly. Co-creation. Recognizing Indigenous peoples not just as stakeholders, but as rights holders and knowledge keepers.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the FAIR data principles and the CARE principles are increasingly seen as working together. That's the gold standard for responsible AI and biodiversity.
FAIR and CARE together. That makes sense. What else is needed for a responsible future?
The last piece is really fostering that interdisciplinary collaboration we talked about earlier, breaking down the silos between ecologists and AI scientists, building communities of practice where people can share knowledge and challenges. And again, algorithmic transparency through XAI is vital for building trust between disciplines too.
Okay, so to wrap up, AI clearly offers incredible promise for understanding and protecting biodiversity, right? It could really help us tackle those 7 big knowledge shortfalls.
If we wield it wisely, yes, it could help us move towards a much more holistic view of life on Earth. But it requires a really concerted effort.
A call to action, then.
Definitely. For researchers, policymakers, funding agencies, tech developers, conservation groups, and crucially, Indigenous peoples and local communities. Everyone has a role. We need to navigate the technological challenges and the ethical ones. It requires what some call a responsibility ratchet, constantly upping our game on ethical considerations as the tech evolves.
It feels like the true potential isn't just filling gaps, but maybe changing how we even think about ecological complexity and conservation.
Absolutely. It could foster entirely new ways of seeing these intricate systems and designing truly adaptive ways to protect them.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener. How can we collectively ensure these powerful AI tools are genuinely directed towards protecting this amazing web of life for the future? And maybe what role could you play in this evolving landscape?
A really important question for everyone.
This has been incredibly insightful, a real deep dive into AI and biodiversity. For more fascinating discussions on everything AI, please check out AI Unraveled. Make sure you like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. You won't want to miss our future deep dives.
Keep listening.
And one last reminder about Etienne's AI-powered JamGatTech app. If you're serious about mastering those in-demand certifications in cloud, cybersecurity, finance, business, or healthcare, it's packed with resources like performance-based questions, quizzes, labs, and simulations to help you succeed. Definitely worth exploring to take your career to the next level.
Check it out.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.